Hey, what up, guys? This is the No Level Cap podcast. This week, we're talking about the PS5 Pro's bonkers price, getting into some Tokyo Game Show predictions, and discussing the anime film Blue Giant. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the No Level Cap podcast, where we talk about all the anime, all the gaming, all the nerd culture, and none of the bullshit. Man, let's get into it. This week had a little bit of a surprise, like a little minor surprise to it, in that the PS5 Pro finally got announced. You know, people have been predicting that for like months and wondering like when it was going to finally get to the market, what it was going to cost, what it was going to be capable of doing. And they just kind of threw it out there. It was like a 9-minute presentation with notably no new video games. And, you know, at the end of it, just a giant screen that just said, hey, here's the PS5 Pro. They put like an extra line on it and then said, hey, come off $700. So
vertical stands sold separately.
Disc drive sold separately.
Yeah.
So if you want to buy both, we're talking probably, what, $820 plus tax. This is wild. So, I mean, like, I just want to know, like, how do y'all feel? Like, do you think the price is too much? And do you see yourself potentially getting a PS5 Pro, Terrence?
You know, this was an interesting presentation from Sony because, man, I just don't know what. I did not think that they would charge that much for it. Granted, I'll say this. I think that the PS5 Pro is ultimately for those that can't afford it or for those that they want their games to run optimally no matter what, and they don't have a PC, or like obviously, you know, they mostly play PS5 games that aren't available on PC. But for myself, I don't see myself getting it just because it's like, look, this thing over here already cost me $500. I'm definitely not going to trade it in to pay like, because what, I'd probably get like $350 or maybe even $300 for the OG PS5, and so I'd have to come off $400 or so for the new one, and it's like it's not worth it for the increases that we saw. And I think that's another thing with the presentation is that they just did not show the differences correctly. I feel like, and part of it's also because since you're doing it on YouTube already has like compression, and you're just not going to be able to show like the finer details of the difference between the PS5 and the PS5 Pro through the internet that way. I really wish they had like released like screenshots or something like that, like side-by-side comparisons to better showcase like the difference that they were talking about. I don't know. I just feel like Sony just took a misstep on this one. Now, are there people that are going to buy it? I think so, but
absolutely,
I definitely don't think you're going to get like any major sales out of it. It's kind of like the Apple Pro Vision, where the people that are going to buy it are like the first adopters, or the ones who really are into tech like that, or more maybe on like the influencer side or something along those lines. And like the average consumer, you know, it's outside their price range. You know, most of us that bought a PS5, we're probably not ready to drop another like $500+ on another system. So
come off it.
Yeah. It's not like the PS4 Pro where the cost difference between those two, at least from what I remember, was not that wide. It's like the PS4 Pro is like another like $100, right?
Yeah. At the time they had cut the price of the PS4 and I think introduced the slim model, and so like the constant PS4 price was like $300. Occasionally you might find it for like $250, and then the PS4 Pro was like $399, like just basically the same cost as the launch model PS4.
Yeah, and so that's my thing, is that by making the price so drastically different from the OG, it's like, yeah, you're just too far away from your average consumer base. So yeah, I don't see myself getting it. Would it be something nice to have? Sure, but I mean, my wallet isn't heavy like that, so I think I'll just pass on it. Bro. Hey, if I get the opportunity to see it in person, or, you know, have somebody that has it and I can see the difference, you know, that'd be great. But, you know, the difference is just not enough to warrant that price tag. It just isn't.
Okay, that's fair. Rakeem, where do you stand, brother?
So this
This is interesting. This is interesting for me specifically because I was like really looking forward to seeing what the Pro had to offer because I was actually kind of wanted to try doing a Pro system because I missed out on the PS4 Pro. I wasn't quite as interested in it just to see, some higher quality like frame rates and like visuals and things like that, just to see if it was adapted correctly. But when I saw that price range for the vanilla PS5 Pro without the disc drive, I was like, nah, fam. Nah, not me. No, sir. Not me. How I sit on it is that, man, I think Sony really missed the mark with this one just from the marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
You could tell the fans weren't into it. You could see it all over the timeline. Like there were definitely individuals who were like going to do it. I saw people on the timeline who already bought their disc drives. They're ready.
Yep.
They
Disc
know
drives
they're
were
finna
sold
buy
out.
it. They did sell out. So there are people who are
Wow.
definitely interested. There are people who gonna buy this Pro. Oh yeah, people gonna buy this Pro. There are people who are like who love having the latest tech, and that's just like part of their identity as people. So that's gonna happen. But for me, it just felt kind of hollow. I mean, there was some improvements to game. There are certain games I would like to go back to with better quality, like FF7 Rebirth, for instance. Like I think that game with another level of like better frame rate and stability and the visuals not being as like kind of washed out as they were in the vanilla one would make a big difference in quality. But I also feel like that could be fixed in a PC version. And even if Square Enix didn't fix it, you could find somebody who go mod it and do it themselves. So like, that's kind of the core there. And it feels like this was the moment where I was like, man, if I'm watching this Pro, I'm looking at PC game and I'm like, man, this is the real move. Cause like this Pro feels like it's starting to feel like a scam. It feels like we're kind of getting to the point where consoles have reached their limit in their power level and like what they can really do. And we're getting kind of diminishing returns and minor improvements. And it's not enough to warrant the average consumer's interest. Because like the average consumer doesn't care about that much graphic fidelity. Only a niche part of the audience is going to really care about that. And once you niche that down to a degree, that's going to do some harm. I think they kind of missed the boat on this one. I do think some people will adopt it. I'm personally disappointed that the price range is what it is because I'm not going to buy it. I wanted to try it out. I wish they had like kind of had done some kind of special deal where they like showed like a trade-in system and they gave you a bonus for having this and this and that. Or like maybe give you a little bit more value off your trade-ins for something like having a disc drive already instead of having like the non-disc drive version to lower the cost. Maybe then I think about it, but at this point I think it's a no from me. I think they kind of missed the boat on this, and like man, lately they've been kind of all over the place with their W's and losses. I've never seen like y'all seen the graphs. We're so back, it's so
Twitter,
over.
Yeah.
They can't win for losing. And when they get any little bit of equity, they just throw it all away in like a couple of weeks. I've never seen nothing like this before. But yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna from now on, like I'm as interested in the Pro, and we're a few years off from seeing what the next console looks like. So what I want to see from Sony is games. So all I'm gonna be looking for from Sony is games so much. Unless they have some kind of thing that like, yo, this is the game that maximizes the Pro and you gotta play it on the Pro to get the full experience. Nah, I don't see anything out of that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Terrence.
Real quick, I'll say, hey, if the machine ain't running GTA 6 at 4K 60, like what am I buying it for?
I heard a rumor that it struggles that even this will struggle to run GTA 6.
Yeah, I think I think IGN Digital Foundry had a video, and Digital Foundry was talking about how that's probably not gonna happen. So it's like, what's the point? Like to just run older games at 4K 60? I mean, is it worth that?
Not really, no.
No.
Well, Will, you're we got 2 no's so far. Where do you stand?
Well, for my Pro console like thing, I never got a PS4 Pro when it happened, so I missed the boat on that one. I stuck with my base till it couldn't chug no more. It kept going, but I just did what I could with it. Got rid of that, and then I got this PS5. But see, I didn't get mine at full retail price. I got mine when someone traded theirs in at GameStop when I worked there. So I got first dibs at it, traded my PS4 in, and I pretty much got mine for like $100 and something at the time.
Nice.
So yeah, I pretty much got mine for it still, employee discount and all that on top. That's how I got it that cheap. Now, when I seen this PS5 Pro come out, I won't lie, my brain was like, let's see what that's talking about. And just like everybody and Keem and everyone sitting right here, when I seen that the disk drive was not included, and I looked over to my left, and I seen all these cases sitting over here, I said, you got me fucked up if you think I'm going to spend $700 on a system plus another 80 and another 30 and then another 75 because they just raised the price on the controllers too.
Woo.
So
For real?
yeah, they've raised
they're
controller prices
$5
again.
more expensive.
They're $5 more expensive now.
So I think they're like $80 now.
Damn.
Yeah. It's probably $80 for like special color, 75 for like basic black and white, maybe.
Jeez.
So yeah,
Trash.
I seen that. I said
Gaming
that's
turned to elitist hobby.
Yeah, it did.
It well, I mean, like, and the thing is, they'll tell you, oh, well, get this subscription, get that subscription to make things cheaper. But like, I don't know, man. Like, it still feels like we trying to squeeze every dime of money we can out of the existing fan base, and that part of that probably comes from, and I read an article about this, so this is not my idea, but like a part of that probably comes from the pandemic when they expanded the audience so rapidly, and we kind of saw the limit of how many people were going to be gamers, and after that, there was no new market left to tap, and so, well, outside of like maybe you can make it work in China or like South Korea or something like that, but that would involve getting consoles to be popular over there when it's usually PCs. But outside of that, it's like, hey man, we can't get new people, so now it's just time to see how much money we can squeeze out the old ones. So
but just to like kind of go back to what I was saying, with all of that combined, you looking at about a solid $900 coming out of pocket. God forbid you choosing to pick up this system brand new because you didn't have a PS5 at the time, and you want to play with your friends. That's another $80 for that year if you're trying to do that. So you looking at borderline $1,000 out of your pocket to get on this system and play games that only did minimal graphical enhancements to most of these games. And the presentation didn't do it no justice because the joke started flying the minute I started getting on Twitter after that presentation. From like, oh, you really can't tell. Oh, you could just see a few more blades of grass. I mean, you can see a couple more pores on their face. I'm like, I don't see this system doing too hot anyways. Like I said, it's only for, like y'all said, it's only for those who were looking to buy it, who want the new piece of technology, who want the new shiny thing because it can do this and that. So it's gonna be those people that's like, yeah, I want to go ahead and get that because that's the better system. I mean, if it is to you, more power to you, to each his own. But I will not be getting that system. I will clean up the one I paid for. I will buy a new SSD. I may buy a new controller if I'm feeling it. I'm messing with this one right now in my hand right now as we talk.
Hey,
so
don't forget that portable that wire just that's been working for me.
Oh yeah, gotta make sure I get that too. So as far as I'm concerned, that PS5 Pro is out of the budget, flat out. I don't care what nobody say. I'm saying this speaking for me and maybe even for other people. The system ain't worth it at this moment. If it had more to it and it did not come with a lot of things that people want, like the disc drive separately, it maybe would have been fine. But because you want to sell me the optical drive separate, you're not going to screw me out of my collection. Fuck off.
Man, that optical drive really is a huge loss because it's like any game that you own physically, you can't touch them.
You can't play it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that.
Exactly.
That's a huge L in that regard. Like, man.
I was thinking about that when Devin first found out about extra disc drive, like a detachable disc drive. He's like, "What's the point? You should rip it out. I'm done playing games for the day." It's like, oh God, I'm sick of this. I got a lot of lost Justin Wong too many times. It's over with.
Bro, speaking of that, I just saw the tweet that Justin put up. So for those who aren't aware, Marvel vs. Capcom collection just came out recently. A collection of all the MVC, X-Men vs. Street Fighter. If you're like an old school fighting game, this is like Nirvana for them. Yeah. So like Justin Wong's like a really well-known competitive player, one of the most famous fighting game players of all time. Basically like a personality of the fighting game community. And he made his name off Marvel, like really big in a Marvel scene. And seven-time champion. So ironically, he puts up a tweet and he was like, what's going on? And it's just like tons of people leaving bad and some good reviews of like, oh, I was having a great day, and then I ran into Justin Wong online and got destroyed, and so I'm going to return this game now.
And money back.
And it wasn't like, oh, one meme review. It was like almost 10, 11, 12, 13 reviews.
Apparently the matchmaking is busted. So you could be like a bronze player getting matched up against Justin fucking Wong in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That's like a high school quarterback going up against Tom Brady, bro. You're not finna make it. You finna get cooked out here.
What's crazy is he's not even playing like his mains. He's only been playing random select characters.
He's been doing random. He's not playing no top tiers. He's not playing
no top tiers, nothing. Just bullshit player. And he's still washing people.
He's been goated for years, so it's not a surprise. But yeah, as far as this PS5 Pro thing goes, I don't know. Like one thing Terrence brought up is the Digital Foundry thing, like the YouTube thing and the compression, and that's mistake number one. Like, I don't know why you didn't link up with Digital Foundry and get something going with them and have them show off the console. And, you know, since then, they've talked to them and it's been like, okay, Digital Foundry's done a little bit of talking about comparisons and like how powerful the PS5 Pro is. Like they talked about how it was nearly as powerful as a 4070, which is like not the best video graphics card, but it is one of the best. It's, you know, the current new generation. Well, not new, but the current generation. I think the 4060 came out like last year or 2 years ago, something like that. And so it's like, okay, that's pretty impressive, but that's information that should have been there at launch. And they could have found a way to show you in a more compelling way that appeals to the serious graphics heads, the serious, like, I want all the quality. Like, you should have linked up with them, because the shit y'all showed, they was like, oh, see, you could, this the PS5 and this the PS5 Pro, and I was like, I felt like I needed glasses up on my glasses and to sit like
that meme from what is the Community where it's like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't see no fucking difference. Like, it's like, oh, you know, you could tell, and I actually watched it twice. I watched it all by myself when it first happened, like, well, about an hour after, because I slept late. And so I watched it when I woke up. And then, like, I watched it again, I think a day or two later on Rakeem's TV downstairs, because I don't have a 4K TV. And I was like, maybe I'll see something here on the 4K TV that I didn't see. And I was like, just barely, I saw, like, a little bit of difference, but, like, not $700, man. And, you know, like, I know that it's going to sell. There are some people that want this, and like and these people are proof that America's spoiled as shit, and like, you know, the developed nations are spoiled as shit, because it's like, just get a fucking PC. Like, I need better graphics than the current new console. Then get a fucking PC. Like, shit like this shouldn't really sell. Like, go get a fucking PC. And I know people are like, oh, well, you can't get a PC for $700, and that's true. You're not going to find a desktop that's, you know, $700 and has a 4070 in it. Like, that's gonna be $1,500 or some shit like that. But like, it gets to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna get in the range and I'm gonna have a more powerful system than because like the 5000 series of GPUs are due out probably next year, and you'll be able to get a 5060, which is gonna run better than probably a PS5 base. For like $300, shove it into my laptop. I mean, shove it into my desktop, and I'll have like a super powerful PC that'll run everything, not just right now, but everything going forward for the next 4, 5, 6 years. It'll be a long time before like anything comes close to that as far as like what PC needs. And it's just not worth it anymore. It just doesn't feel like it's worth it. And the other thing that really bothers me is that it's a boring upgrade. Like the fact that they just added like a stripe or 2 stripes. I forget the difference. I think it might be 2.
3.
Yeah. Well, no, I think there's 1 stripe on the PS5 already.
Yeah. Well,
and then they added
on the most recent systems. Yeah.
Yeah, on the Slims. Yeah. I know it's 3 because I've seen the meme of what's my man?
Spice Adams.
Yeah, he has the 3 toothpicks.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm like, man, I don't.
You just gave me the Bobby Brown haircut.
I'm like, man, that shit boring as hell. Like, I remember when they used to redesign systems and they would look completely different. And I was kind of excited. I was like, okay, well, I wonder what the new system's gonna look like. And I should have known, like, the PS5 Pro or the PS4 Pro didn't really look all that impressive. It was just like they added another layer to the cake. I'm like, well, that's not gonna get it. It's like, oh, 2-layer cake? Well, now it's 3-layer cake. Like, I don't care about that.
Yeah, that's really
And
what they did too.
they put these 3 pieces of black tape on there and acted like, oh, you know, it's $700. Like, I don't like that. Like, redesign your console. Like, this is the time that you have to redesign the console. And I also don't like the fact we've gotten to a point now where everything's so serious about gaming that there's nothing fun anymore. Like, where are the different colorways? Like, remember when they used to release different colorways for consoles?
Yes.
And now it's like, nah, you got whatever colorway you have that we launched it at. That's the only one you're gonna get, and that's it.
I feel like
Now you
that
gotta buy,
died
like,
with
the-
handhelds. Like once the
did.
3DS was out, it's like that concept was out. Unfortunately,
Now you got to buy covers. Like you got to find the covers, or people do custom covers.
Yeah,
That became like a secondary market. That became kind of a secondary market itself. People make these custom covers for consoles.
Custom covers, the custom colored consoles from the companies themselves, those that
Stickers.
cross over with certain IPs, like such as the Kingdom Hearts PlayStation from back then, the Final Fantasy 13 PlayStation that was white and pink that had lightning on it, like that right there. Like, bring some of that stuff back. Like, y'all lollygagging with this minimalist bullshit. Come on now.
the custom covers. Man, we could do a whole other podcast about how much I hate minimalism now. But like the custom covers are. It's just like you're asking me to spend more money on this already expensive ass console. Like, man, just sell me
all that is.
the console as it is with like a. I don't know. So I'm not impressed. I'm already on a PC. It's not as powerful as the PS5 Pro is going to be, but it is going to run pretty much any game I'm going to pick for the next year or so. And then when I upgrade, I will just pick a PC again because I'm not like all the PS5 games eventually come to PC anyway at this point.
They do.
Like Spider-Man is probably due out like middle of next year, late next year. Rise of the Ronin, I bet I see that sometime next year. And Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I bet I see that sometime next year. And Square is about to stop because they're not making anywhere near enough money for this. So they're about to give it up. And it's just going to be multi-plat for everything except Sony main shit. And even that comes to PC after like 2 years. I can wait for 2 years, bro. Like, I'm not impressed enough. And then I think the last and probably most damning criticism I saw, and I was like, yeah, that's fucked, is they were trying to show you how big the changes were. And they were like, oh, look how well it runs Ghost of Tsushima. And I'm like, that's a PS4 game, bro. Look how well it runs The Last of Us Part 2. That is also a PS4 game, bro. It better run it well. Like, you're not selling me on nothing. Like, you got to show me something new. There were no new games there at all. And they had the nerve to show you some games from last generation. And it's like, this is anti-advertisement to me. That's what that is. Like, you're selling me on a reason to not buy this console. Because it's like, well, if all you got is some shit from the 8th gen, then why would I need this 9th and a half gen console? So, yeah, y'all got it on that one. Next up, I guess I mean, like, it's about that time. We're getting towards we're in the middle of September, and we're edging towards, by the time we reconvene for this podcast, it'll be like late September at that point. And so I guess what I want to ask y'all is, what are y'all's Tokyo Game Show predictions? And I just need one from you. I don't need a whole bunch. I just need the one. I'm gonna go first and just say my prediction. My prediction is that we see the new Yakuza somewhere in there, like whatever that is, whether it's Yakuza Kiwami 3, whether it's the next installment of Judgment, whether it's a new IP entirely. Because I mean, like, y'all know how RGG Studios get down. They reuse a lot of assets. You're not gonna tell me they designed that big ass Hawaii and they're not gonna go back to it at all. Like, no, we finna see Hawaii again. So I would not be surprised if they like did a IP and maybe set it in Hawaii or something like that. Who knows? But I would not be like, I'm expecting to see Hawaii at some point. But that's really just the prediction I came up with off the top. My actual prediction is that more likely than not, just before Tokyo Game Show, we'll get a Sony State of Play, and it'll like have a bunch of Japanese games, and then some of those games are gonna pop up all throughout Tokyo Game. Like, magically, a bunch of studios that didn't have anything will show up with a whole bunch of stuff. So, Rakeem, what about you, man? What's yours?
With the success of a lot of these like these character action, like Chinese kung fu martial arts games coming out recently, I was thinking that like maybe we finally see Lost Soul Aside again. Maybe at TGS. It feels like it's time.
Was
To
that
me,
not because that's not them, right? That's China, right? Wasn't that part of the China Hero Project?
Oh, you might be right.
It was. There was China Hero Project, and they got another one going on right now too, I think.
I think not. I think that showed up and had like a new trailer not too long ago, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more so like it's time for a release date.
Oh yeah, well
Yeah. That's why I'm thinking so more so because it's been such a long time. Like, and now like all of these like hitting it out the park. So it might be time to like, hey, start ramping this up again. Maybe let's get a more solid release date, even if it's like, hey, winter 2025 or like winter 2024,
Like
you know,
Persona.
something like Persona, and just have that like, okay, we know it's gonna be like probably February or March for real. So it's like winter 2024. I just get an idea for it. I think it'd be a great idea for that to come back up again.
Okay. Will, what about you, man? What's yours?
Okay, so I won't lie. I know Sega Atlas had their thing getting ready to come up, and they couldn't hold water to save their lives. So I was definitely thinking at first we was gonna see Digital Devil Saga have its 2 games come back in a remaster, but instead, because they plumbers can't hold an ounce of water or turn a wrench right for nothing,
Zero.
in the world, ended up seeing Raido Kuzunoha pull up. So I'm gonna still kind of sort of hold my hope out for the Digital Devil Saga duology, because I think it's time that does happen, because it seems like they're not gonna touch Persona 2 anytime soon. And and I mean, we've already got Persona 3 touched, and I know they ain't gonna go back to Persona 1. It's gonna be Digital Devil Saga, if anything. So let's see. I'm praying. I would like to play those games again, even though I got them both. I still would like to play them again.
Man, what a busy company, because like they already put out Persona 3 Persona 3 Reload. Then now they've got then they had Shin Megami Tensei 5. Vengeance.
Sure did.
Yeah,
And then now they've got Metaphor Refantasio coming out, and Persona 6 is not too far off from now. It can't be. Like, holy crap.
Man, Japanese companies do not play around.
Persona 4 remake would be wild. That shit would sell too.
You definitely
It would, like
Gangbusters. Gangbusters.
I'm not a Persona fan, but I will say this: don't hold the Persona fans when they come out with, if you come out with a Persona 4 remake, because people are salty about the fact that you didn't get like all the different updates that Persona 3 got. They're not in the remake.
Oh, you mean like the PSP game, like being able to choose between the male and
male and female protagonist.
I wish they had kept that, but
and they just redid episode Aegis, right? It made it a DLC.
Yep. That DLC is $35, by the way. That shit's expensive.
It was a whole pass, but it had like extra stuff in front of it. But I'm like, that's not how you do that. That's not how you do that, Atlas.
I bought both versions of PS Persona 3, the PS2 version and the PSP version. I would be mad as hell if I had to buy the remake and then buy the DLC. Nah.
I couldn't do it.
That's ridiculous,
Man, bro. I got the one with the Aegis figure down here, bro, because I wanted that. And then they just like, hey, bro, if you trying to play that extra part, $35. I'm just like, y'all gonna put it on sale soon. Y'all ain't stupid.
Yeah. Hey, I can go back and play the PS2 version and wait until then.
I promise y'all, I'll turn the PS3 on in a hot second. I got the original back here too. So I'll turn it on.
Terrence, where do you stand? What's your prediction?
I'm going to make mine pretty easy. I think if it doesn't show up at Sony's showcase, which it probably will, but I'll sure, why not? I'll shoot my shot on this one. I mentioned it before. I'm going to mention it again. Look, it's time for MGS3 remake to get a release date. Come on now. Like, supposedly the rumor is November. I think there was like leaks for it that it was supposed to come out like maybe like early-ish November or like middle of November. And if that's the case, the release date has to be revealed soon. So whether it's at Sony's showcase or it's at TGS, probably like what you said, Sage, like maybe Sony will have a showcase before TGS and they'll reveal it there and then have a playable build at TGS. I think that would be ideal. So that's probably what's going to happen. But either way, it's like, yeah, if that game is actually coming out this year, then they got to make some stuff happen fast, because Silent Hill 2, the remake for that comes out next month. Yeah, you don't have much time to do the marketing for Metal Gear Solid 3. It's time to go ahead and get it on out there, or we'll see it in 2025. That's kind of how it is with a lot of these games that were supposedly coming out this year. It's like, if you don't announce your date at the end of this month, it's a wrap. Like, I just don't see you coming out this year unless like shock drops are just okay for you.
It is. I mean, like, it does feel like that's becoming more and more common, though. Like, more developers are just like, we'll just announce it a month or two out from release and then be like, surprise, this is when it's coming out.
That does seem like that's becoming more of a thing. And I guess maybe 2 months is, fine enough for most gamers. It's like, okay, that puts you on your radar, and like it puts it more immediately on your radar than like telling you, I guess, maybe like 7-8 months in advance where you might forget it or whatever. But I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't like it. As games get more and more expensive, it is more and more of a slap in the face to me personally that you're just gonna be like, oh, we'll announce it like, oh, it's coming out in a month, and it's like you got $80 or you got $70 or you got 70 plus the expansion pass plus the gold expansion. Like, no, bitch, I don't got that. Like, you should have told me ahead of time. Like, don't just surprise me with this shit.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Keem?
Especially now since people don't go to GameStop and do the $5 pre-order 6 months in advance, $10 here, $5 like we used to. You got to pre-order game. You got to buy the whole fucking game.
Yep,
all of it.
Because they don't charge you until it's time to pay for it, and when it's time to pay for it, they want all of it.
They want all of it.
Yeah.
So it's funny you say that because like I was just talking to a friend last night, and she was telling me how she went down to GameStop to pay for Zelda, and like she paid it off. And it's like I had forgotten that was a thing until she said it, and I was like, oh yeah, we did used to do that. We did used to go down and pay off gradually, and now it's just they just assume that, oh, you want to buy it, like, oh, you must be ready to buy it the second it comes out, and it's like, no, I'm not. And like low key, I kind of think that was part of Concord's problem, and I talked about that last week, where it was just like, hey, we're not going to tell you about this game until it's 2.5 months from release. And then we're gonna have like a really short, promotional cycle, and then that's it. And I'm like, that's not gonna get it. No. And so I just think I'm with Terrence. Terrence has been talking about this. He's been banging that drum since Summer Game Fest.
Yeah,
just like you should be telling us the release dates. And a lot of them, they're like, we're not telling y'all shit. And then finally, when they're ready to tell you, it's like a month or two from release, and it's like it's weird and it's off-putting a little bit.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, I mean, that's the news part of things. Now let's get into the movie review. Let's talk about this Blue Giant. This was I was looking for anime movies to like pick, and then I remembered that Terrence had recommended this film to us a while back, and we just never got around to like checking it out. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Interestingly, I was not able to find much about it online. Like, not a lot of like press or not a lot of people talking about it. Yeah. Very strange. I mean, like it's an anime movie. Like, you would think like in this modern era where we talk about anime all the time, like it would get a lot of publication, a lot of press, but like, nah, not really. So I am very curious to see what everybody thought. Rakeem, I want to hear your thoughts, bro. What did you think of the movie?
So yeah, this is not going to be one of those reviews like we had with what was that movie we watched with like the ex pop star who wanted to be an actress.
Perfect Blue.
Perfect Blue, where it was like some Inception shit going on. You didn't know what was. This is not that movie. This is a very straightforward.
You're not gonna get lost.
Yeah, it's a straightforward.
There's no plot to get lost in that regard.
It ain't trying nothing too tricky. It's a coming of age story. Some 3 young dudes at like 3 different paths of their musical journey, persevering and like coming together to form this band and like kind of figure out who they are in the process as well. I will say, first of all, I enjoyed this movie. I'm not gonna say it's like the greatest movie. No, it's not that, but I enjoyed it. The first thing I liked about it was it kind of had this strong subject matter of like passion towards something to the point where like you can't contain it in your body, and like to the point where you have to express it. The protagonist of this story was his name Kai, I believe.
Die.
See, I apologize for viewers. I get everybody's name wrong in these reviews. I've done that every single time. I apologize for that. I'm gonna get them wrong for the future. I'm just bad with names. But like Die is like fresh out 18-year-old leaving the house. His brother gave him a little money, and he's just out in the city trying to be a musician, just raw dog. He meets up with a dude, becomes a roommate, and he just like get a part-time job, and all he does is play the saxophone. And it's kind of like almost like a One Piece thing. Like, I want to be the greatest musician ever. I'm gonna be the king of musicians.
There are some
and he
shonen
gets his,
vibes to this.
and he goes and gets his ragtag crew of musicians, kind of like how Luffy does with the pirate crew, and like discovers, like, he sees the talent they have, and like he has this sense of like seeing the innate talent of somebody through their expression, even when they can't see it. So that's what I thought was cool. And then the rest of the cast, well, I think the other guy's name was Kishimoto, right?
Yukinori.
Yeah, Yukinori, and then Tamada.
Tamada, okay. Yukinori is a. So what was really cool about this movie is each character was a representation of different stages of being into music. So like, Kai, Dai, I keep calling boy Kai. Dai was at this stage where he had been in music for about just a few years, and he had practiced, and he was somewhat of a prodigy, but he really wasn't, because he just had a really strong sense of work ethic beyond any normal person's, like an obsession. He had an obsession with being a great saxophonist, and it's like
first thing you see is him playing the sax, and it's like blood on his, because he's just been practicing so long. And I was like, all right,
bro,
that's the level of devotion we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. And then you see Yukinori. He first sees Yukinori performing at a club, and he's playing the piano, and he just sees his like playing with one hand and just going crazy with it. Yukinori's at this stage where he's been a performer his entire life. His parents are into like piano music, so he's basically like being groomed his whole life and like beat into him to be a good musician. And then you have the roommate, and he hasn't played a lick of music his whole life. And he just is inspired by these other two's passion for music and wants to try drumming, even though he has no experience. So it's a real when I mean a ragtag group, this is about as ragtag as you can get of musicians. And the name Jazz, and I don't know why when I saw their name as JSS, I was like, Jazz? Just Ass? I don't know about that name. I don't know about that name. But yeah, like watch this movie and like seeing them kind of come together, like practicing in that little ratty bar with the lady and nobody else is in but them, and just practicing all night, working together and moving up the ranks, so to speak, in that little small area. It was very endearing. I really enjoyed that. And then like the conflict they find where like Yukinori hits a wall with his playing, where he's kind of reached the ceiling, where he's become formulaic. And it reminded me of a friend of ours, Mario, who told me a story a long time ago of how there's a difference between feeling the music and learning and playing the music, and how like sometimes he had to stop himself from like just becoming like a hard read the music type of dude, because you could lose the feeling, the soul of the music. And that was kind of like a dichotomy with Yukinori, where he had hit a wall because he was such a practiced musician for so many years. It had become a formula, and he had learned how to do certain things that worked for him, and it was holding the band back from reaching the heights they needed to get to. And that was kind of the main conflict towards the end of the movie. He was able to overcome that. He got some tough love, man. He got some tough love. He said, hey, you got to figure it out. That was like, look, I'm trying to be the best saxophonist. That's my goal.
I liked it because there was an unsaid thing there where he was like, he called you trash? Yeah. You agree with him? I think I do. All right, then you trashed him. And like the unsaid thing there was like, hey, you let another man tell you was trash. You let another man spit on your work. And if you don't have the guts, after all this talk about, hey man, if you ain't got the talent, I don't care nothing about your hard work. If you ain't got that, like, then that's on you. And we can't fix that. Until you believe in yourself, we cannot help you. And now even Tamada kind of didn't understand. He's like, why you was never this hard on me? It's like, yeah, because I knew you would break. But like he gonna have to figure this out. Like you spent 14 years, because that's what he said. He was like, I've been because they asked him, he was like, how many years you been practicing? He just put up 4. He's like, no. He's like 4 years. Like, no, I've been practicing since I was 4. And he's like, hey man, you got 14 years of practice. Like you just gonna have to learn. Like somebody told you was trash. All you got to do is like get better and shut them up. But you accepted that you was trash, so I can't help you.
Yeah, that was like the biggest conflict. For the most part, they were it's pretty straightforward movie. Until and then like you get to the, I'm gonna be honest with y'all.
Why did Truck Gun come up in this movie? That's all I want to
know.
know.
Right?
I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I'm gonna be real honest with y'all. They did a good job foreshadowing that, because he was working that job. And remember,
Yep.
he's like, hey, you didn't pay attention to what's going on. He said it to him in that movie. As soon as he put this up like this, the first thought that came to my mind, he's about to get ran over by a car.
So
that was literally my first thought.
so real quick, I'm gonna say when I saw this in the theaters last year, like when that moment happened, like everybody just like, and I'm with you, Rakeem. As soon as he was holding up, I was like, this man, something's about to happen. Because like you ain't paying attention. Like if you ain't directing the traffic the way you supposed to, something's gonna happen. And it wasn't really his fault because they said the driver fell asleep at the wheel, but still, he wasn't paying attention, so that didn't help.
I'll say this: I didn't catch that part, but what I caught was like the conversation right before he went to work. I said, this don't feel right. It had one of them vibes of like, you had a conversation, and then the next time you hear from him, it's like, yeah, so-and-so died. You like, when did he die? Like that type shit had like that kind of vibe
feel
to
like
it.
that.
So I was like, somebody, and then when he got hit, I was like, Truck Coon, why are you in this movie? This ain't got nothing to do with you.
Luckily enough, Truck Coon didn't finish the job.
Thank God.
I swear, bro, thank God.
Yeah, so that was like the biggest conflict once he gets hit by the car, and of course they're about to hit. They're at their big break. They finally work their way to get into this club. He figured out how to overcome his own debilitating wall, and they were like on their way to like the big club and the jazz club, their biggest performance yet. He gets hit, and then there's a moment in the hospital when he's like, "Hey man, he definitely ain't gonna be ready for his performance tonight. That's impossible." And the dude looks at him, what we gonna do? So we gonna play.
We still gonna play.
And I remember when I first thought about it, man, that's harsh. But I remembered the opening conversation he had with a dude about how jazz bands don't last forever. And he said, look, are you okay with me if we become a band, you being my stepping stone to the next level? He had that conversation with them. And I think he remembered that as like, hey, man, if it was him, he would do the same thing. And they went out and they had this uncharacteristic jazz performance without a pianist because he was out. They just had the saxophonist and the drummer. They performed the song they had performed previously that got them really popular, so that was really cool. And then the heartwarming moment was the dude showing up with the arm brace and the eye patch. And he did play when he first showed up. He played with one hand. I was like, he finna play that shit with one hand. That's crazy.
It reminded me low key, like when he showed up, it reminded me of like wrestling. When like the dude be injured and they like let him have a match. It's like, man, they should be letting you in here. Like you just got out the hospital. Like you should still be in there. You just got out of surgery. And they was like, I mean, what you want us to do? Let him play. I was like, okay.
Man, he said, play till you drop. Go ahead, Terrence. You about to say something?
Hey, he did say, hey, you can just walk out of the hospital whenever you want to, right?
Yeah, technically, which is weird, but yeah. So yeah, that was very heartwarming, and he actually was able to play in a club he had waited his entire life to get to. So I thought that was really cool. And then the end happens, the credits cut, and then the aftermath scene really landed for me. When he's talking to him, he called him on the phone, told him, hey man, you're my favorite pianist. I always loved your work. Thank you for everything. Basically, like their final wrap-up conversation before he moves to the next level. And he goes on a flight to Munich, and the guy cries. A part of the cry felt like happiness, but also a part of it felt like I became his stepping stone. That same conversation from the beginning about the stepping stone conversation. And I think he kind of reflected on him when he was playing and he was still injured. I became his stepping stone to the next level. I think it was like grief and happiness mixed together, interpreted different ways, but that's how I interpreted it from that scene. So that last scene really hit for me when he had the tears in his eyes and stuff. So overall, solid movie. I'll give it about an 8. I think it was good. It's not complex. It's very straightforward. It's a very easy movie to follow, but all the characters are likable, which is one thing. They have a very natural relationship, makes sense. The band comes together. The struggles they go through, even the struggles they go through make sense. It's just nothing super crazy happens. This isn't like when we watched that Christmas movie with the homeless people and everything. It was mafia and shit. None of that shit. This is a very slice of life, down to earth movie, and I think that's fine. I just enjoyed it. I thought it was paced very well, did a good job, and the ending hit for me. So that's what I think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Terrence, you're the one that introduced this film to us. You're the one that first brought it up to us. How did you feel about the film?
So as I said earlier, I watched this last year in the theaters, and the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, what a inspirational film. I really enjoyed it the first time, and watching it again, I still feel the same. Like, I think that this movie is a testament to passion, hard work, and perseverance. Like, yeah, it does have kind of like your typical shonen plot in a sense, in terms of the main character wants to be the best at something or like the king of something essentially, except this is with jazz. But because it's not like rooted in anything unrealistic, it does feel very down to earth, like what Rakeem said. I'll say that I like all the
band
characters.
start playing.
Until what?
Till the band start playing. They went to that festival and it started summoning galaxies and the Super Saiyan 2 aura. I had the crowd going through a time warp. I said, God damn, they playing the shit.
I did forget to talk about the visuals, but I'm sure you guys will talk about that. That was a big part of this movie as well.
That is something I was going to talk about. Yeah, and I think like visually like that, like I guess it's kind of like you're in the zone, like, and that's kind of like maybe like a representation of it, or like even how earlier in the movie how they talked about how jazz invokes emotions, and it's like, yeah, with that different kind of imagery and like how abstract it is, you could see that as like the emotions coming out when they play. But I'll talk a little bit about that later. I will say I like all the characters, like Rakeem said, and I mean he nailed a lot of this very well. Like how they represent different levels of talent. Like you have Dai, who is kind of maybe seen as more like the natural talent, but he's also the one that really practices his ass off. Like he's like the Jordan in a sense, where when everybody was gone home, you know, they clocked out for the day, he was still on the court shooting buckets. Or like your Tom Brady, who just someone who is just naturally talented, but they don't rest on that talent. Like they still put in the work to further their talent. And you have like Yuki Nori, who, yeah, he's the one who's been doing it the longest. He's maybe more seen like the prodigy or like the gifted one. And he works hard too, but like Rakeem said, it gets to a point where he rests on his laurels, and there's like a ceiling that he hits that he has to acknowledge like his limitations and push through it in order to get to the next level. And then you have Tamada, which is, yeah, a total amateur beginner. And he's arguably the most relatable character. He's the one that actually, I didn't even watch a trailer before I went to go see this in theater. So I didn't know that he would become the drummer. I just thought he'd be like, you know, just the everyman kind of roommate character that would just cheer on Dai. But yeah, the fact that he became the drummer was really cool. And you get to see him starting off from knowing nothing and going through like the blood, sweat, and tears and pushing through and through to get better. And what's also really cool with him is where, as like Dai and Yuki Nori, they had their obvious fans. With him, there was like the old guy that showed up at his performances, and like the first time that he came up to him, he told him like, I've been seeing you get better and better. And he cried at that. And it's also really cool at the end, you see that same old guy, and he's just like in awe of how much better he's gotten even since that point. So that's really cool. Talking about the music itself, because I mean, obviously this is a movie about music. Music is incredible. It's really well done. Like if you really close your eyes and listen to a lot of it, like, man, it can really take you places, especially if you're a fan of jazz. The artist that does it, Hiromi Urehara, yeah, she does a great job conveying the emotions in the scenes and keeping things engaged. Like the last performance is really well done from like a musical standpoint. To speak on the art and animation, I will say that I do like those scenes where the art gets very wonky. You have like the sweeping camera angles. The director for this, if I'm not mistaken, he also directed Mob Psycho 100, and you can kind of see
that makes sense.
You can kind of see the vision there in terms of like how the camera angles are all sweeping, which is definitely how Mob Psycho 100 was. And I think that it's really cool here. I wish there was maybe more moments like that. I can understand why it only happens at certain points in the movie, but I feel like it would have made it even cooler if those kind of scenes if they happened maybe a few more times. They only happened really twice. It was like the jazz festival, and then at the end, that's when they really get crazy with it. But outside of that, they kind of are a bit more tame, the music scenes. And what's also cool is during those music performances, you also get like montages of the hard work that each character has put in. Like when Dai's doing his solo, you see the different images of the times where he was practicing outside or practicing like in different places. Yuki Nori with his scene, you see him just practicing and like all the musical sheets and scratch through stuff. Tamada, same thing. So like that's giving you more story to the characters without like straight up just putting it in the scenes themselves. Like it's giving you backstory without it being like put into the film to like pad the runtime or anything like that. It's very effective. I like the way they did that. I would say my only critique with this film, like I really do like this film, but my biggest critique with it, and it's I think one that is probably just due to time and budget, is that the use of CG for the performance animations. Like I do wish that it had been traditional 2D animation.
That was weird.
But I don't hate it, but at the same time, it would have looked better if it was traditional animation. But I think if we're being honest, I don't know the budget for this, but this isn't like a Studio Ghibli film or anything from Makoto Shinkai. Like you're not getting that level of animation for this. I'm pretty sure this was done. Like they told them, hey, we'll give you a little bit to do this, do it within this time frame, get it
figure
on
it
out. That's it. Yeah, figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think that's more so just a budget limitation than anything else. But that being said, I think they did well with what they were given. I think it just would have taken the film to the next level if the animation could have been strictly 2D throughout the entire time. But I mean, I get it. Budget is a thing and that limits you. So all that being said, I really like this film. Like I like how it's simple, but it's very inspirational. Like you walk away from it feeling like, I want to go and do something great kind of thing. Just at least that's the way that it made me feel. It made me feel like, I want to be the best at what I can do. And yeah, I just think that it's a really neat film. And I think that if you're a music fan or like a fan, if you're a music fan or a musician and you like anime, this is a no-brainer. You should definitely check this out. And even if you aren't like a musician, I think that this still is a cool film that anyone can enjoy. So I give it a solid 9 out of 10. Like I really liked it. I think the only thing that holds it back is just the CG that comes into play for the performances. But like I said, I'm sure that's more of a time and budget thing. So I don't really blame the studio for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. So we got an 8 and a 9. Will, where do you stand?
For me with this movie, I've only seen this advertised to me once, I think in like the past like few months. I've seen it advertised to me once on like YouTube. It was like a really quick ad. It showed up, said, hey, watch it here, and then it was gone. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go watch it whenever I see it. But thanks to this moment here and us choosing to watch it, to do the review, hey, I got a chance to watch it. And I must say, I think this movie is really, really good. I like the art style. I like everything. And like Terrence said, the CG did kind of throw me the first time I seen it. I was like, yeah, I didn't need to have that there. The characters are definitely very likable, no doubt about it. Tamada is my guy because once I seen he was the drummer, because I listen to a lot of music like across all different genres. And if it comes to like rock or even jazz or something like that, I usually try to follow drummers and see what they do because, well, I have a background in playing rhythm games and I played Rock Band a lot and I played drums in that. So that kind of stuck out to me. Yeah, Rock Band was a lot of fun, me playing on the leaderboards and whatnot. But watching him kind of go through his struggles of like trying to get his rhythms down, get his sticking down and everything, him basically tearing his hands up on drumsticks, which can happen because I do still have my first pair of sticks from when I played Rock Band years ago. So they're like, 16 years old somewhere in this room. They're dark as all get out. You can still probably see my handprints around the bottom of them. But yeah, I enjoyed watching everybody kind of go through it. It definitely felt like a very inspirational film. I love the music though. The music really just sucked me in those animations when they were like getting the term I think is called in the pocket, when they just get there and just get to playing the music and everything sounds good, everything's cohesive, and that animation just changes and you just see like galaxies and shit like Sage said. Like that was just amazing to me. They let me know that they were there, like they were playing that music.
They were
like,
locked in.
Yes, they were locked in. They were locked in on stage, and all they were doing just playing the music. Like the crowd wasn't there; it was just them, the instruments, and the sounds. That was it, and I thought that was really fucking cool. So, for anybody wanting to watch this movie, it's a quick 2 hours, and it's straight to the point. It doesn't give you no left, right, zigzag, none of that. It's just like these people want to do this, and they love it, and they want to get from point A to point B. They want to be the best that they can be. They got together and they made it happen. So I must say, on a scale of 1 to 10, I give this about a good 9. I would highly recommend this film to anyone who just wants to watch something that is inspirational, music based, and if you like jazz, this it. this is it right here. I mean, you can do this, or what's that other show I'm thinking about? Kids on the Slope.
Kids on the Slope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's that. Like, check those out. there's the music is amazing. Check this movie out. Blue Giant is awesome.
Yeah, this movie is. It was really easy for me, and I'm kind of sometimes I can be a little bit of a blockhead. You know, I watch anime and I'll be like, hey man, you know, where the explosions at, where somebody getting punched in the face and all of that. And so I cut this movie on, really just to try to expand the horizons. But like it wasn't long, and I watched this movie in parts because I watched this movie first like late last night, and I mean like really late, so late that it's technically early. But I was watching it at like 3:00 in the morning.
The best kind of late.
And
Yeah.
or the worst. I mean, in some ways, like, hey man, take your ass to bed. But yeah, I was just watching this film, and I watched like the first 35, 40 minutes, and I was wondering, I was like, is this gonna hold my attention? And to my surprise, there was no point ever at any moment in this film where I was like bored, not necessarily from like the story, but like sometimes setup can be a little slow and it can be hard to keep your attention. But there was never a point where I was bored, because a movie like this was, and I should have known, because a movie like this was always going to be easy for me to love, because I love music so much, and I just love creation, the creativity, and the act of becoming a creator. And that's so much of what this movie is about, you know, outside of, you know, jokes about large meat. But yeah, it was so strange. I'm sorry. Like, it was so wild. Like,
It was
they
out
met,
there.
like, Dai and
out there, for
Yukinori met because Yukinori looked over, was like, damn, big meat. It's like, my God,
I was like, is this going in a direction I didn't know it was going in?
I know, right? Did I pick the right movie?
I was like,
I
sir,
think
what?
that was only a one-off thing.
I mean, it came back up later, but it was like they didn't like dwell on it. Yeah, I agree, and it was,
Yeah,
that
they
was
didn't
really
do that.
good. But yeah, I mean, like, it was really cool to see these characters come together, and it is one thing that I will point out is that it probably is, and shout out to the director and the writers who worked on the script, because it was based on a long-running seinen manga. And I mean, like, when I say long-running, it's on like its third sequel. So there's like 4 different manga,
Yeah.
all following Dai and his adventures. And they managed to condense that down, at least like the first 10 volumes effectively. They condensed it down to just a 2-hour movie. And there's never a point where you're watching the film and you're like, this is poorly paced, or they're rushing over this aspect of the character development or that aspect. It's just, it feels like a cohesive film from start to finish, and it's really good. And it's so much of it is understated, like so many parts that you would only catch if you're paying attention. Even though, like Keem said, it's not a complex movie, but there are things that are understated that you're gonna have to pay attention for. Like, so often they zoomed in on the character's hands. And it was like, it's stereotypical, but it gets into the idea of sometimes art does require suffering. Sometimes you have to suffer for your art. Like I said earlier, one of the first things you see with Dai is him practicing out in the cold for so long that there's blood on his saxophone. And it's like, bro, like it's enough. Like you practice enough for the day. And and that comes up later too. Cause like Yukinori listens to him for the first time after hearing that he had only practiced for 4 years. And he was just so overwhelmed with emotion. He was like, hey, man, I'm going to need you to get up out of here right now. And as soon as he left, the woman at the bar was like, he's good. He's like, good, not even the word. Like, how'd he get like that in 4 years? Like, what kind of training? What must he have done? What must he have gone through to get to that level? And they're like, man, like, and you see it again and again. Like, even the drummer had the drummer in that towel cave trying to perform and learn how to get the beats right. Like, he was going through it. Everybody in this, like, they showed you how much they cared about it. And I'm with Terrence. I agree. Like, I'm still not a big fan of the 3D. That was the big detractor from this movie. It frustrates me to know that is where anime is headed. It does not feel natural. Even when it's good, it's still like the best I've seen 3D in anime is like Trigun Stampede. And I'm still like,
good.
It looks good.
It looks good.
And I'm still like, I'd rather 2D. Like, if I had my way, I'd rather 2-dimensional. Like, that would be the perfection. But yeah, I mean, like, everything, like the music, like when they finally did start playing music, because at first it's so much of like the work you have to put in to just get to the point where you can play music in front of people. So much of the early parts of the movie is about that. And then finally you get to like the first little place that they play, And it's like, okay, well, there's 2 or 3 people watching, but they played their ass off for them 2 or 3 people. And that's also part of the art. At first, no one knows or cares who the fuck you are. And you just still have to give 125% for the 2, 3, 4 people that do know who you are. And they nailed that part. And they nailed the part about like, oh, sometimes you like the one part that really resonated with me as somebody that writes for a living. Like that part where old dude was like, yeah, we performed in front of 32 people. So you know what that means? We got paid. And he handed out that 10,000 yen to each of them. That's not a lot at all. Like if you do the math on what yen to USD, like if you see 10,000, like if you think in USD, you like, oh, that's a lot of money. But like if you do the math of what that conversion rate is, it's like they did not get paid a lot for that. But guess what? Do you know how cool it is to be paid for something that you did, that you wanted to do, that you cared about? That's the coolest fucking feeling in the world, that somebody acknowledged you enough to be like, this is worth paying for. And so like even that moment was like a success. And like even like the moment of like the drummer, like Akeem already covered how they were all in different stages, but like that moment where like coming out of the club, like after they performed at that first club, and it was like, or I think it was the festival. It came out the festival, and like they like, oh, Yukinori came out and they were hounding him for autographs, and he's like, I gotta go to this to meet this guy. I think his name was Tyler. Which is funny for another reason, but like he's like, I gotta go meet this guy, and so he brushes everybody else off, and then Dai comes out, and they're like, oh hey, can we get your autograph? And he's happily signing autographs. It's fewer people, and then finally the drummer is just like walking off, and that one dude comes up, and he had been busting his ass, and that one compliment just gave him everything he needed to keep going. He started crying. I was like, yeah, bro, let's keep going. Keep that shit up. So like that was, they nailed so many aspects of what it is to be a creator. And then they also nailed the part where finally Yukinori, he finally got that little bit of humbling experience when that man Tyler came in there and said, look, man. And I mean, like, Yukinori had been rude throughout most of the film. And they did that thing where you kind of get used to it. And again, this is like understated. Like they didn't have to tell you this. You just pay attention and you get it. And it's like, he was kind of a dick, but you got used to it because he wasn't a bad person. He just was a little prickly. And then that man Tyler sat down with him and was like, yeah, man, this shit trash. Like you clearly just going through the motions. And what it really was that Yukinori was afraid to express his emotions in jazz, and that's something that you cannot do because there's a strong element of jazz that's like freestyle, and like he was like, hey man, you don't have that in you, and if you don't have that in you, you are wasting our time. We're the top club in Japan, and I ain't got time for this. But like, you not only waste my time, but you just rude to everybody around you. You couldn't even say nice to meet you when you met me. You told the bartender like, hey man, just get me whatever. Like everything you do is just disrespectful. And he hit him with that line. He said, look man, I'm going to pretend I have no association with you going forward. And walked out that bar and said, and put the drink on his bill. I said, wait a minute. God damn. That's why I was with Dai when Dai was like, you let that man call you shit and you ain't do nothing about it? Well, fuck you then. It's like, you're right. Because that was cold. It's like, God dang.
Extremely cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I loved all of this movie, like the and then there's one thing I want to go over just in case people don't get it. If you watch this movie off of our recommendation, because we hyping it up, if you see it and at some point you feel like it's a little melodramatic because some of the characters are crying in the audience and shit like that, one of the things they talked about is how jazz is a quote unquote dying art form. When you have an art form that is in decline and is dying, what you have is like a bunch of people the people who are left are super fucking passionate. These are the diehards of the diehards. And so the people in that audience in So Blue, some of them knew them, but some of them didn't. And they were still crying. And the reason they cried is because the music means so much to them. And they connected with jazz. When I mean jazz, like the band, they connected with jazz so much that they were like, fuck, these dudes is killing it. And they could feel the passion coming through in the music. And that's why they were crying, because that's what that means to them. And then the one last thing I'll say, man, when I tell you the artist got down in that last piano solo,
man,
they showed the man's memories in the ice cubes. I said, God damn, this man going on. Whoever did that art was doing the work, boy. I said, shit. This is the first time I've seen a movie where the music scenes felt like fight scenes in another movie.
Yeah.
In terms of how well animated they were. Like every scene was like so well put together that even the 3D, which I admit was definitely kind of sloppy, and overall, I'm gonna give this movie a 9 out of 10. I'm gonna take off a point because of the 3D, but like even with that, like the parts that were animated, they was killing it. They went in, and so like if you're the type of person that watches movies based off of Sakuga, this will get you there. What's up, Keen?
I was about to say, before you finish, another aspect of this movie that we didn't all talk about was that it's also kind of like an interview is going on throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Fast forward.
Like a documentary, yeah.
Yeah, and they fast forward. So they kind of spoil you that Dai's going to make it. He's going to be like that dude. And like they're going through like the characters as they're older. They interviewed the drummer. They interviewed the lady when she was older. They might have interviewed the other guy, but I don't remember.
They interviewed his original teacher.
Yes, they interviewed his original teacher. And it was really cool to see. I'm like, whoa, this is interesting. But also like it also made me remember some of the drummer says like we only were together for 18 months. Period. That was the whole time of that band's lifespan.
The second I heard that, I was like, okay, so where's this going? Like, what's going to be the break? Because that has to be what you build toward once you say that.
Correct. And it also reminded me of like when you talk about like the old man who we talked to the drummer, it reminds you of if you guys have parents who are older, and I know Terrence does, and Will, you have some older people in your life, and so does Sage. You might have a parent whose favorite like band or like group is not well known or like esoteric, but they always play them all the time. Like, who is this band they always play? And like, this is the type of situation like this movie where you had this band with a short lifespan, but they were really fucking good. That like a person who was in that audience for their final performance will never forget this shit.
Yeah, true.
They'll like bring this up to their kids down the road. Like, oh man, the best band ever is Jazz. There's nobody better than them. And your kids like, who the fuck is Jazz? I never heard of. I can't find nothing on them online. Like, who is this group? But like,
they don't even have a
this
Wikipedia page.
That's how like moments. Like this situation is like how moments like that are created, where you have like this pocket where this band was passionate for a short amount of time and was able to like break through and like be super successful in their little small window of music until the other star broke out. But that was really cool. That reminds me of like how you have a parent or grandparent who had a favorite artist that you never heard of, and their career never went super far, but that period of time when they listened to them, they never forgot it.
Funny you connected that to like older people, but like I mean, hell, we live in an era where that's possible for you now, like with the SoundCloud artists, or like now like the different, like there's certain artists that you grew like hell, there are some artists that we grew up with listening to in college that are not going to hit that level of like superstardom. And it's just like, hey man, but I'll still play some of their music sometimes. Be like, hey man, that music was still bumping. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm not gonna give up on it.
Yeah.
And so like that is a good point though. Like the idea of like you can only be around for a short period of time, but if you make that huge connection with people, like they're not gonna forget you. But yeah, I mean, like all in all, a fantastic film. Thank you, Terrence, for putting us on to it, man. Because that was fire.
I'm glad you all enjoyed it. I am.
It was great.
Yeah.
I gotta put some more people on.
yeah, there we go.
Put some more people on Jazz.
I got back piano practice.
Yeah. That's right. Keen was doing piano practice. All right, man. That about wraps it up for us this week. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like. If you loved it, share it with your friends. For now, we signing off, and we hope you have an excellent week. Peace.